Welcome back to the BetCanada channel. Today, I am delighted to be joined by Alexa Ross of CBS 4 and Fox 59. Thank you for joining me, Alexa.
Yeah, Katie, thank you so much for having me. Let's talk about this crazy free agency that the Colts have had, which is something that we can't say all too often.
A few things have been happening. So, yes, a few big moves, most notably at the quarterback position. They bring in Daniel Jones. They say to compete with Anthony Richardson for the starting job, 1 year, 14 million with just over 13 million guaranteed. How much of a competition do you actually see this being?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the thing with this situation is that when you have a rookie who you bench and you try and become a pro, because in all of the conversations that we have had with coaches and front office folks, the biggest thing has been that he's needed to like really lock in and learn how to be a pro, which it's a learning curve, from high school to college to then to the NFL, especially when you've only played going into your draft, into your draft 13 games. Like you've
Right.
not learned how to prepare necessarily like that. And then your rookie season, you get hurt. And, it's just what feels like this never ending avalanche of something with this guy. And like,
It
that's not
does.
and that's to be expected. When they took him, they knew it was going to be a project. They knew they were going to need to be patient and things were going to have to get done. However, I don't think they expected to bench him in this past season. I don't think they expected to put Joe Flacco in. I think Joe Flacco was really just supposed to be like that security blanket. But Chris Ballard at the combine here in Indianapolis said, competition makes everybody better. So when we push this competition forward and we continue to, it's not just for Anthony, it's for everybody. It's for the whole quarterback room, it's for the whole offense, it's for everybody. So the thing with Daniel Jones that I think is super interesting, as somebody who's a fan of an NFC East team and has watched a lot of Daniel Jones in my time, is that, there are flashes. There are flashes of good things. I mean, they signed him obviously very prematurely after that
Mhm.
playoff win, but, there's something there. And I'm interested to see how they continue to move in terms of the offensive balance between the RPO and just
Mm.
what they want to do to integrate Daniel Jones into this, because Anthony Richardson is so mobile, so very, I mean, he's a runner. He's very, very athletic. Not saying Daniel Jones isn't, but it's a very different kind of athleticism. It's a different kind of athleticism there. So I think that that's also a very interesting kind of dynamic at play to
Yep.
see, because a lot of people thought they would bring in more of a dual threat quarterback in the same way, like a
Mhm.
guy who's more similar, because you go from Joe Flacco, who's a true pocket passer, one of our last
Yes.
left, to then have a guy who's, yeah, he's more of the modern quarterback, but he's not like the modern quarterback. You know what I mean? So I'm interested
Mhm.
to see how, if they do this the way they did when Anthony was a rookie, when Gardner Minshew was here, if it's going to be in training camp. Both of them are splitting reps with the ones, and they're constantly going back and forth, because that's what he did in his rookie camp. So I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised to see that again. But the biggest thing to me is, if Daniel Jones wins this quarterback competition, Anthony Richardson was never your guy. Just
Completely agree.
straight up. I think that it's kind of like the all rectangles are squares, but not all squares are rectangles kind of
Yes.
geometry class. Like, if Daniel Jones wins this competition, Anthony Richardson was never going to be the guy. But if Anthony Richardson
Mhm.
wins the competition, then Daniel Jones is just kind of your security blanket again. So I'm interested to see how camp plays out, because we have seen this before with this quarterback. Obviously,
Yes.
much more green, a lot more raw, things like that.
And that number is so interesting to me because 14 million, and I think it's upward to about 17 at its best, but
Yeah.
this number is so interesting because it feels a bit like it's in between a starter and a backup. And I think that leaves a lot of space for they really don't know what they're going to see with all of this when it all plays out. That number I thought was really interesting.
It is really interesting, because you do look at the guys who are signing these bigger quarterback deals. You look at the
Mhm.
Fields move. You look at, everyone else's guaranteed money and where everybody's going. But this very much feels like, okay, we're going to teeter on the edge of this, especially after, Daniel Jones requests the trade. He gets out. He goes to Minnesota, and he's there as the third string quarterback for all intents and purposes for a little while. But it's fascinating to see how in I don't know how in depth we're going to go with this being a competition.
Mhm.
So as we go in depth with it, everything will be revealed in camp. It always is, but
Yep.
I definitely am getting some flashbacks to Anthony Richardson's first camp.
I am very much looking forward to the storylines that come out of Indianapolis this year. So, a few changes up front, saying goodbye to Ryan Kelly, Will Fries, bring a few guys back, Braden Smith, Danny Pinter, Wesley French. What do you expect to see from this offensive line this year? And what changes do you think still need to be made before the season starts?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We kind of assumed that Ryan Kelly would be gone. That was kind of,
I kind of thought retirement, if I'm honest. I was a little
yes, I think,
surprised that he went to another team.
yeah, retirement was a thought. I mean, he and his lovely wife, Emma, have 3 children. They have twin boys and a baby daughter, and they've done so much in this community. And also, they're from Cincinnati. So, like, being here is really good for them because it is so close to home.
Right.
But I'm glad he's getting another shot. He's a great man. He's an excellent guy. He's a great center. He is the leader. Like, he's such a
Mhm.
strong anchor, not just of the offensive line, but as of an offense in general. And I think the Braden Smith thing is very interesting because Braden Smith was out for a very long time with personal reasons. And
Right.
so we didn't know what the deal would be with him, if he would be coming back or not. So the restructured deal, I think, guarantees money in case something does happen where he has to take a step back.
Mhm.
So I'm very interested to kind of see what's over there. They did draft a ton of offensive line talent last year, and these are guys who did have to play last year. Matt Gonsalves. When you have those kinds of guys who are coming in, the offensive line was very inconsistent last year just because of injury and people
Yes.
needing to plug and play different positions or slide down the line or whatever. But Tony Sperano, who's the offensive line coach, has really proven to be or like an asset to this offensive coaching
Mhm.
staff. And they've for the better part of last season, despite all of the changes, they were fairly strong. They looked like Colts offensive lines of the past when you think of the stronger the Peyton Manning offensive lines that
Yes.
really drew in the notoriety for locking him down and keeping him in a good place. So I think that I think that in this second wave of free agents, I wouldn't be surprised to see another person come in. I wouldn't be surprised to have just like another veteran there. Um, that being said, I think that this is kind of a weird free agency for the Colts anyway, in that we're
Yeah, it
making
is.
far more moves than ever before. I mean, this is a team that likes to be very conservative in terms
Mhm.
of free agent signing, especially when there are things of need. Like, I can't express to you how badly secondary help was needed last year, and now we're like, "Ha ha, hi, what's up, everybody?"
Well, let's get into that because I was shocked by this.
We
The
all were.
Colts secondary is suddenly looking really, really good, and like you said, some big moves. They bring in Cam Bynum and Charvarius Ward, which I'm sure Colts fans are really happy to see
Yeah.
because this isn't typical for them. But then also after watching that defense last season.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting too. With you have a new you have a new defensive coordinator coming in.
Mhm.
So I think that they're kind of going all chips in on the defense because of how inconsistent things were last year. You have the league's leading tackler in Zaire Franklin, which Zaire's great. You have the middle lockdown. They're very good up front with Grover Stewart, DeForest Buckner, great guys on the edge. But then when you go back is where things started to thin out, even just in terms of depth, not even so much in terms
Mhm.
of ability. It was more so just the depth piece of people. Juju Brent's getting hurt, who's a local guy. So everybody really, wanted to see him play and do well. But unfortunately, he gets hurt early on. And you have so many issues. You have guys signing shorter deals, but then you have Kenny Moore coming back and things like that. And Kenny Moore is, he's great. He's wonderful. I think having, splitting in the secondary, getting a veteran corner, excuse me, a veteran corner and a veteran safety,
Mhm.
it
Yeah.
makes it takes a lot of the pressure off these younger guys, the Juju Brentses, the Jalen Joneses, Nick Cross, those kinds of guys. So you have guys who are proven to be really effective in the secondary, which I think they're going to need specifically with the
Mhm.
schedule that they have coming up. There's a lot of West Coast road trips. So when you can, anything you can do to really stabilize when you're playing a schedule like that is obviously super helpful. But I think that, Cam Bynum is, everybody loves him. There's what's
Yeah.
not to love, right? So
Yeah.
it'll be fun to have him in the locker room and then have a guy, and also he is a guy that for as fun as he is, he's so tenacious. So you're
Mm.
still
What a
getting
great combo.
side. Yeah, it's just it's such a perfect balance, and I think that the Colts defense kind of lost that last season.
Mm.
I think they lost a little bit of that edge, and I think it does have to do with Gus Bradley and the inability to kind of adopt schemes specifically for teams that you're playing, which of course is frustrating, you know. But yeah, I think that these and they Chris Ballard gave them big money. Like these were not
Yes.
like small deals. These were big. This was big money, blockbuster signing. Like these are probably two of the biggest signings they've had in Ballard's tenure,
Mhm.
you know, as free agents. And so it shows a different approach to free agency, which should be an exciting thing and also an encouraging thing that, hey, like we recognize that we can get better and we should be better.